I'm reminded of what the KDA did last year, I think around September was it, when they said all the prescriptions should be in Kannada. I found that kind of difficult, but now I see that they want all of them 60% to be Kannadigas only. So tell us, Vaji, this is also about Kannadiga pride or Kannadiga language politics, isn't it?
Well, in Karnataka, the Kannada pride comes first for everybody. That is something that goes standard with every issue that comes around. If you don't know Kannada, then again it becomes an issue. But when it comes to this particular diktat, yes, the KDA has said that they requested, they put an issue, they put a demand to the government that at least 60% of the staff, which is nurses, your compounders and doctors, should know the local language, because then it becomes easy for the patients to let them know about their problems. They have mentioned about how there are private hospitals also where this facility is not there. But the major chunk of this issue falls under the entire rural ambit, where the idea of speaking Hindi is very minimal, and or English is next to nothing. And that is where Kannada becomes very important. And at these places, they believe that there are a lot of doctors that come from the North India belt cadre, and they are posted here, and that is where it becomes difficult for those doctors also to manage and understand the problems of these patients. Now, like you clearly mentioned, yes, before this, their demand was prescriptions to be written in Kannada. But if we see, when the government had also tried to introduce Kannada as a language for medical this thing, I believe it had come across that very less takers were there for that also. So it becomes little difficult on how they are going to manage this, or how they are going to get more of the medicinal staff to know Kannada, because you see most of the nurses come from states like Kerala and Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. So these people knowing Kannada and speaking Kannada would be very difficult, and they are the states that provide most of the nurses facilities. So it remains to be understand how they're going to bridge this gap, or how they're going to take this suggestion of the KDA into application now.
I understand that, of course, in rural areas it is very important because they don't have exposure. But how is it going to be possible in a city like, let us say, Bengaluru or even Mysuru for that matter? If it is only in government hospitals, maybe they should have a central system where you have to learn, much like the administrative services. But suppose, that's one issue. The other issue is, of course, Vaji, I know a lot of people who are Kannadigas but don't speak the language, but they have the skill sets. So why is language become the most important thing? Although Vaji, I personally think that it is very important for doctors to know, because how will a person, but in rural areas, where he's trying to explain that he has pain here or here, how his stomach aches and all that, he can gesticulate. But do you think that, is it even practical, Wajihulla? Personally, I'm asking you, do you think it's possible?
Well, it depends on individual to individual, because there are doctors which I have interviewed and I have seen in Bengaluru. They are big doctors. I don't want to name them, but they are big doctors who have learned languages like Bengali and other languages, because they have patients who come from those areas and they treat them. But when it comes to Kannada, Kannada becomes a very sensitive issue. At least in the south, people are very sensitive when it comes to their language, be it the Kannadigas, be it the Tamilian, and every time somebody tries to impose another language, it becomes a part that they are trying to interfere with the language of the state, and that is something that brings a sense of inferiority to the people, if I could go on to say that word. But yes, Kannada becomes very difficult for people in rural areas. Like you mentioned, yes, in rural areas, it is important for them to know. In local hospitals, in government hospitals, where your entire chunk of the population that comes for a checkup, for medical help, are also the people who are from the lower strata of the society, where their exposure to English and Hindi is less, and they come to these government hospitals. Take government
All
hospitals
right.
like Victoria. So that is where it becomes difficult. But on the other hand, 60% is too much of a demand. There should be people with the Kannada language in the hospital, but how much that the government should take a call on.